Welcome back to the deep dive. Our mission today is, well, it's pretty targeted. We're tackling a psychological contradiction that really governs success.
That's right.
We are diving deep into how you build armor against, the crushing reality of rejection, how to become emotionally detached when you need to be. And then, almost immediately, pivoting to the counterintuitive strategy for, massive influence. Achieving profound connection by being radically, genuinely interested in other people.
Yeah, it's a fascinating duality, isn't it? It's the perfect deep dive for anyone navigating those high-stakes environments, whether that's, performance, negotiation, or, honestly, just trying to get a risky idea approved at work.
Right.
We're basically mapping out this dual strategy, resilience and influence.
Yeah.
They seem like opposite poles, but actually they work together, hand in hand.
How so?
Well, you need the armor, the resilience, just to survive making the attempts, right? To put yourself out there. But then you need the connection to make those attempts actually worthwhile, to make them land.
Okay, got it.
So we're synthesizing insights from clinical psychology, yes, but also from the, let's call it the high wire act of mentalism, to give you a genuine shortcut to being, really well-informed on this.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Starting with the defense mechanism, let's talk rejection. Because the sources we've analyzed reveal something, frankly, kind of shocking about the pain of being excluded. You might think being ignored or rejected is just, an emotional bruise, something you just tough out. But our sources are pretty clear. Rejection triggers a measurable physiological pain response in the brain.
Yeah, that's the kicker. And what's truly fascinating is how this ties back to our really early evolutionary wiring. The American Psychological Association, they've noted this extensively. Rejection doesn't just mess with our emotions.
Right.
It disrupts cognition and, yes, our physical health too. It's an ancient mechanism. I mean, if you look back tens of thousands of years, being ostracized from the tribe, that wasn't just awkward.
No.
It was basically a death sentence.
So the brain, which is fundamentally just this survival machine, it still registers social exclusion as a direct threat, like life and limb kind of threat. It's hardwired.
Completely hardwired. And we have proof. There's some truly groundbreaking studies on this. Naomi Eisenberger and her team at UCLA, they used fMRI, functional magnetic resonance imaging.
Right. The brain scan.
Exactly. On volunteers, to pinpoint the exact moment and, crucially, the location where this pain registers.
How do they do that?
Well, they set up this clever experiment. Volunteers thought they were playing a virtual ball-tossing game online with two other people.
Okay.
But the key was the game was rigged. After a few initial tosses, just to get them included, the two partners, who were actually just computer programs, they'd single out the volunteer.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and intentionally exclude them, just tossing the ball back and forth to each other, leaving the volunteer out.
Ouch. Okay, and what happened in the brain scans?
Well, as the volunteers felt that, that strong visceral pang of exclusion, the fMRI showed this massive spike in activity. But in one specific region, which was
the anterior cingulate cortex, the
Yeah.
ACC.
the ACC.
And that, for neuroscientists, and really for us trying to understand this, that's the money shot. The ACC is the very same area of the brain that registers the physical sensation of pain.
Wait, you mean like stubbing your toe pain?
Exactly. We're talking of the part that lights up when you accidentally slam your hand in a car door or, feel the sharpness of a broken bone.
Yeah.
Your brain isn't really differentiating much between that physical harm and social rejection. And the strength of those feelings of exclusion, they directly correlated to how much the ACC lit up. More excluded, more ACC activity.
So when we say things like, oh, that presentation was painful or getting that rejection email really hurt, we're not speaking metaphorically. It's literally registering as pain.
Precisely. It's not just in your head, so to speak. It's why rejection isn't just like psychological downtime. It's a full-blown biological tax on your whole system.
A biological tax.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. And evolutionary biologists, they suggest the brain kind of co-opted this physical pain system for social pain because historically the social threat was existential. It was life or death.
So why invent a whole new neural pathway when the one for danger, harm, already exists?
Exactly. Just repurpose it. Efficient in a brutal sort of way.
Okay. This insight, it changes everything about how we need to approach that moment of refusal or criticism. Because it's not just feelings, it's physiology. Rejection triggers that primal fight or flight response.
Yep. You get the adrenaline dump, the increased heart rate, blood pressure spikes, all those stress hormones flood your system, putting your body on high alert,
Yeah.
like you're facing a predator.
And the immediate neurological fallout sounds pretty brutal, too.
Oh, it is. Our sources note a sharp drop in dopamine,
Mm.
the motivation, the reward chemical. When dopamine dips like that, you basically open the door to sadness, those negative self-talk spirals, feelings of grief even, and just a total loss of drive. It's a profound physiological hit for what seems like, just a simple interpersonal failure, like someone saying no.
And it gets worse, apparently. I saw something in the sources suggesting you don't necessarily just get tougher with age.
Yeah, that was a counterintuitive finding, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Research suggests that older adults, maybe because they have smaller social circles or fewer chances to replace lost connections, they might actually feel the sting of hurt feelings more acutely than younger adults.
Wow. So building this resilience isn't like learning to ride a bike, something you master once and you're done.
No, it's a skill you have to constantly maintain, like fitness.
Which brings us then to the necessity of building that emotional firewall. The core solution our sources provide for managing this physiological tsunami, this technique called magic mode.
Magic mode, yes.
I'm intrigued by the name, obviously, but fundamentally, what is it designed to do, scientifically speaking?
Okay, so the goal is really to consciously override that ACC pain response. It's about separating yourself, disassociating yourself. The term used is siloing from the specific skill or the task or the attempt that got rejected.
Siloing, like putting it in its own little box.
Exactly. You're actively preventing those negative emotional and physiological feelings from internalizing, from bleeding into your core identity. Because if it does that, it contaminates everything else in your life.
Okay, but hang on. That sounds suspiciously like denial, doesn't it? If I immediately divorce myself from the negative outcome, how do I make sure I still learn the lesson? How do I fix what went wrong?
Ah, that's the critical distinction.
Yeah.
It's not denial, it's separation for the purpose of objective analysis. Researchers describe this as moving from being the actor in the situation to becoming the observer.
Actor versus observer. Okay, explain that.
The actor is emotionally invested, right? They internalize the outcome. I failed. My pitch wasn't good enough. I wasn't good enough. The observer, though, is detached. They see only the mechanical fault, the attempt failed, or the mechanism broke down, or the timing was off.
I like that shift. Actor versus observer. It gives you that necessary distance, doesn't it? To look at it without the sting.
Precisely. And the real-world example of creating this boundary that the source gives, it's so instructive. It talks about the early days of performing mentalism, like walking into busy restaurants, like Zia's mentioned in the material, high traffic, lots of potential rejection.
Yeah, I can imagine. Terrifying.
Right. So the internal mantra had to be, okay, right now I am not Oz Pearlman, the slightly nerdy kid worried about acceptance. In this moment, I am Oz the entertainer. That's a character.
Ah, so it's a persona if a table gives the dismissive hand wave or just flat out rejects the trick.
They're rejecting the character's performance. They're rejecting Oz the entertainer, who, exists only in that moment in that restaurant for that 5-minute interaction.
But the real person...
The person, Oz Pearlman, remains intact.
Yeah.
He's observing. He's learning the lesson. Maybe the opening line didn't work. Maybe the angle was bad. But he's avoiding that physical, paralyzing pain of internal rejection. He created a conscious buffer. And that buffer gave him the license to be bolder, less guarded, knowing the consequences were contained.
Contained. That leads perfectly into the saltwater analogy you mentioned. That really illustrates this protective siloing.
Yeah, it's a great visual. Imagine your psyche, your sense of self, as a large bucket of fresh, clean drinking water. Okay, that water represents your self-worth, your motivation, your relationships, your capacity for joy, everything.
Got it. Bucket of fresh water.
Now, if you dump salt, let's say a big dose of rejection or shame into that single bucket, what happens?
The whole thing's ruined.
Yeah.
Salty, undrinkable.
Exactly. You can't easily separate the water from the salt. The rejection contaminates everything. It seeps into all areas of your life.
But the divider, the silo, that's the key.
Yeah, right. The magic mode technique, this siloing, it installs that divider. It creates a small separated section, maybe in the corner of the bucket. You still encounter the salt. The rejection happens. You can't avoid that. But you consciously decide to dump it only into that small, contained portion.
So it only contaminates the magic trick silo, or the sales pitch silo, or the job interview silo.
Precisely. That divider saves the rest of your psyche. It stops that crippling thought, ugh, I failed at this one thing, so I must be terrible at everything. It prevents the rejection of, say, a business proposal, from impacting how you feel about your parenting or your friendships or your commitment to your fitness goals.
That is the power of siloing. It means the failure of the performance silo doesn't spill over and ruin the marriage silo or the running silo or the leading a meeting silo. It keeps your core self fresh and uncontaminated.
Exactly. That containment is critical.
So let's make this really actionable for you listening. Our sources challenge us, really, to think about where applying this observer mindset, this siloing technique, could lead to immediate freedom in your own life.
Yeah, think about it. Where do you currently hedge your bets? Where do you hold back because you're afraid of that ACC pain response, that feeling of rejection?
Maybe it's sharing a riskier, more innovative idea in a team meeting.
Or maybe it's asking a key client for a much larger contract than you normally would. Or pursuing a new creative venture, something that exposes you to public criticism or judgment.
Right. If you can consciously say, okay, this isn't me asking, this is my bold pitch persona making this ask, you gain immediate freedom. It feels different.
You're not risking the destruction of your core identity. You're just risking the failure of one tiny separate piece, one silo. And that containment is essential, especially when you remember that finding about older adults potentially feeling the sting even more. This isn't just for beginners.
Okay, so that's the defense. That's the armor against the immediate pain. Now let's talk offense. Because magic mode, this siloing, it only works if you're actually out there risking failure in the first place. Our sources make this really non-negotiable statement. If there is zero chance of losing, there's zero chance of winning. Failure isn't some optional byproduct of trying. It's the necessary foundation for growth, mental and physical.
That's exactly right. It's like, think about an athlete. They have to tear down muscle fibers through hard training to rebuild them stronger. That's the principle of progressive overload.
Right. Stress and recovery.
Well, your psyche works kind of the same way. It needs to encounter failure. It needs to encounter rejection to build resilience, to build character. If you protect yourself too much from that challenge, you're actually protecting yourself from growth. You're staying stagnant.
And the sources give some truly iconic examples of incredibly successful people who were, frankly, utterly defined by their early rejections. The story of Stephen King is almost mandatory here, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. He was working as a high school teacher, writing horror fiction on the side, and apparently getting deeply frustrated by the whole process. He famously threw the entire manuscript for his first novel, Carrie, right into the trash can.
He just gave up on it.
Completely demoralized. Felt it wasn't worth the effort, the constant rejection.
But his wife, Tabitha, fished it out.
Yeah, she rescued it, encouraged him to finish it. But even then, the rejections just kept piling up. The source says Carrie was rejected 30 times by different publishers before Doubleday finally took a chance on it.
30 times. Think about that volume of refusal for what became one of the most iconic horror novels ever written.
It's staggering. And that persistence paid off, obviously, not just with publication, but massive success. Carrie sold over 1 million copies in paperback in its first year alone.
Imagine being one of those 30 editors who passed on it. It just shows. Rejection is so often about misalignment or bad timing or someone else's limited vision. It's not necessarily an ultimate judgment on your potential.
Exactly. Or take Walt Disney. The name is synonymous with imagination.
Right.
Well, he was fired from an early newspaper job because his editor supposedly told him he lacked imagination.
You're kidding. Walt Disney.
That's the story. And Elvis Presley. After an early performance at the Grand Ole Opry, someone apparently suggested he should stick to driving trucks.
Wow. The weight of that kind of dismissal, it must have been crushing at the time.
Immense. And then in the world of invention, of engineering, Sir James Dyson, he's really the pinnacle of embracing failure as just part of the method. He was obsessed with perfecting the bagless vacuum cleaner.
Okay. How many tries did that take? I mean, how many prototypes? 10? 100 maybe?
Our sources confirm the number, and it's genuinely staggering. 5,126 distinct prototypes.
5,000.
5,126. That means 5,126 failures. Designs that didn't work, parts that broke, concepts that flopped, before he finally created the one that worked.
Nobody remembers the 5,126 failures, do they?
Yeah.
They just remember the final iconic success.
That's the point. Which brings us back to reframing rejection, not seeing it as a personal judgment, but as a necessary metric. The source ties this insight back to performing live magic again.
The restaurant gigs.
Yeah, those early days at Zia's.
Yeah.
When you're performing live table to table, you learn very quickly that success is a numbers game. The realization came from actually tracking the results.
Okay.
For every 3 tables, roughly, that enjoyed the show, maybe tipped, seemed engaged, There'd be one table that would politely, or sometimes, very rudely, just say, keep it moving, buddy, or just wave you off.
So that's like a 25% rejection rate baked right into the process.
Correct. But here's the shift. If you change your perspective, that 25% isn't personal failure. It's simply a metric of effort. It's data.
Yeah, a metric.
The same applied to handing out business cards or making cold calls for gigs. X number of rejections, X number of no thanks would inevitably, statistically, lead to Y number of paying gigs. So rejection stops being this awful thing to avoid.
And it becomes a necessary metric you actually have to collect to reach your goal. You're successfully gathering the no's that prove you're making enough attempts to get to the yes.
That's a huge cognitive reframing, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're not being rejected by the universe. You're just fulfilling the required quota of attempts needed for success in that particular numbers game.
Yeah, it takes the sting out of it, makes it procedural.
And this is really the philosophy behind some of those popular challenges like rejection therapy, which you see online sometimes. It's basically self-imposed exposure therapy.
Right, where people deliberately try to get rejected, asking strangers for crazy things.
Exactly. Asking a stranger for $100 or to give you a hug or for a ridiculous discount. The goal isn't actually to get the thing. The goal is to get the no, to actively desensitize yourself to it.
Okay, now the source does caution this isn't like a clinical evidence-based therapy.
Right. It's not a replacement for professional help if
Yeah.
you need it.
Yeah.
But it absolutely serves the purpose of developing thicker skin, building character, and just getting comfortable hearing the word no, making it less terrifying.
And that comfortable familiarity with no, that's where the real growth happens. That's where you gain the freedom to actually try bigger things.
Which brings us to the mental toolkit for actually dealing with negative outcomes when they happen. Because they will. And here, clarity on language is apparently really essential.
Okay.
Our sources provide some helpful distinctions between 3 different types of negative responses you might get. It's useful to know what you're dealing with.
All right, what are they?
First is rejection. This is often external. The idea, the effort, the product.
Right.
It just doesn't work for the audience right now. Maybe because their timing, their specific needs, their budget. And it often has very little to do with the inherent quality of your work.
Give me an example.
Okay, you might be an incredibly talented oil painter, a master. But if the client has mandated they only want poetry for their new ad campaign, your beautiful painting, no matter how good it is, will be rejected.
Right. It's a context failure, not a quality failure.
Exactly. It's contextual, not personal. The second type is critique. This is more problem-focused.
Yeah.
This is when the audience says something like, okay, we like the overall idea, but the punchline of that joke doesn't land, or the structure of your presentation feels a bit backward. It identifies a specific weakness in the execution.
So it's pointing out a flaw you can potentially fix.
Right. And then finally, there's feedback. And this is usually the most valuable. Feedback is solution-oriented. It typically provides a balanced view, highlighting both strengths and weaknesses.
Okay.
It sounds like, we really loved your passion and energy, that's the strength, but we need you to condense the presentation down to 10 minutes, that's the weakness. So maybe next time, try leading with the cost savings data first. That's the solution.
Got it. Rejection, context, critique, problem, feedback, solution. Understanding those distinctions helps you choose which pain or which information you should actually internalize for objective analysis using that observer mindset.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Which is necessary if you want to avoid the regret of perfectionism. There's a really powerful anecdote in the source material about this, centered around running the Philadelphia Marathon.
Ah, yes, the marathon story. Tell us about that.
Okay, so the runner, the source author, had spent months training laser-focused on one single goal, breaking 2 hours and 20 minutes in the marathon, a very specific, very ambitious time.
Okay.
On race day, he runs an incredible race, a lifetime personal best by a significant margin, 2 hours, 23 minutes, and 52 seconds.
Wow. That's amazing. That should have been pure elation, right? A career-defining moment.
It should have been, but instead of celebrating this incredible physical feat, this huge personal best, the entire experience was apparently ruined, utterly soured.
Why? What happened?
Because the actor mindset took over completely. He hyper-focused only on the negative, what he called those 4 stupid minutes, that separated him from his arbitrary 2.20 goal. He completely failed to activate the observer.
The observer who could have stepped back and said, hey, look what you just accomplished. This is incredible.
Exactly. The observer could have acknowledged the huge achievement, the months of dedication paying off. But the actor just saw the gap. And the subsequent misery, fueled by relentless negative self-talk, lasted for days. It spilled over, impacting family interactions, mood, even performance anxiety before the next event.
It's that classic trap, isn't it? Letting the arbitrary perfect goal completely overshadow the genuine, powerful achievement you actually made.
Totally. And the source noted this stark contrast. There was a picture taken a year earlier during a much slower race, the Hartford Marathon. And in that picture, the runner had this look of just unbridled, pure joy on his face.
Even though the time was slower.
Much slower. The difference wasn't the time on the clock, it was the expectation. The absence of that perfectionist pressure allowed him to just enjoy the effort, the experience, whereas the obsession with the 2.20 mark at Philadelphia completely killed the joy of the 2.23 reality.
Okay, so when that inevitable moment of failure or falling short or regret does hit, because it will, we need a proactive strategy. Something to contain that emotional spillover, to stop it ruining everything else.
Right, and that's where we bring in what the source calls the time warp technique. This is presented as kind of a mentalist's trick for fast-forwarding through emotional pain.
Time warp technique, okay, how does that work?
The foundation is basically acknowledging a rational truth. Time heals almost everything, or at least it dulls the sharp edges. Shame, acute sadness, disappointment. These are temporary states. They will naturally subside over time. Our brains actually work to suppress and degrade memories that aren't constantly reinforced.
So you will get over it eventually, but that immediate moment feels paralyzing.
Exactly. If you have a terrible phone call, maybe 1 minute after hanging up, you feel an 8 out of 10 awful, crushed. But rationally, you know that 24 hours later, that intensity will have dropped dramatically, maybe down to a 2 out of 10 or even less.
Right, perspective shifts.
So the time warp technique harnesses that rational knowledge and applies it immediately, right in the moment of pain. You use visualization mentally, picture, reaching for a remote control, hitting the fast forward button.
Okay.
And you essentially trick your brain into feeling that day later relief, that 210 feeling, just 1 second from now. You're consciously accelerating the emotional cycle.
So you don't skip the learning, you still observe what happened, but you skip the debilitating emotional paralysis.
That's the idea. It's like conscious exposure therapy, but you're exposing yourself to the predicted future relief instead of the initial pain. It forces you to accept the pain now, acknowledge it, but with the knowledge that the clock is ticking down rapidly on its intensity.
That's crucial because often it's the anticipation and the dread of the failure or the dwelling on it afterwards that causes more paralysis than the actual event itself.
Absolutely. Avoidance, as the source notes pretty strongly, is only ever a tactic. It's never a permanent solution. You have to move through the moment, not around it.
Speaking of moving through a tough moment, we absolutely have to discuss the most public, high-profile instance of failure highlighted in our sources, the 2023 Super Bowl trick.
Oh, yeah, that one.
If you want to talk about acute pressure and immediate massive rejection, doing a trick live on national TV right before the Super Bowl kickoff. That's pretty much the definition.
Yeah, that anecdote perfectly encapsulates this whole journey we're talking about, from catastrophic public failure to completely repurposing that pain as fuel.
Set the scene for us. What was the trick supposed to be?
Okay, so it was set up as this impossible prediction involving two NFL legends, Rex Ryan and Matt Hasselbeck. The performer, Oz, was to predict the exact moment Hasselbeck finished throwing a series of footballs, timed down to the hundredth of a second.
High stakes and live.
Very high stakes. But the mechanism, the thing it relied on, broke down almost immediately.
What went wrong?
Rex Ryan was the one holding the official stopwatch, and the moment the trick started, apparently he fat-fingered it. He accidentally pressed start and stop almost simultaneously.
Oh.
Yeah. So the stopwatch was useless. It ruined the time recording that was essential for the prediction reveal. The whole trick just fell flat, live. In front of 100 million people or whatever the Super Bowl audience is, cue the immediate social media roasting.
Oof. That immediate reaction, that must have been that 8 out of 10 terrible feeling amplified by millions of viewers, the ultimate public rejection.
It was immense.